is not in the eye of the beholder and is actually systematic. Got a little rum and peach juice. So I'm here continuing the series of radical city girls and just the concept of what that means, what that looks like. Yes, it has been some time since I have posted a video, and that's because life is lifing and it just takes, time to really research and come up with quality, like examples, quality sightings, and all of those things. I'm not trying to just put out just to put out because I can. I want to put out things that I can look back on and be really confident about. So with that being said, thank you and welcome back to my channel. My name is Donna Cabra and I make a space for talking about bad bitch radical shit. So if you down for that, then you in the right place. Purr. Yes, mama. All right, without further ado, let's hop right into her, shall we? So today I want to talk about how sex work is radical. Yeah, the radicalization of romantic relationships and sex work. I also want to talk about the underbelly of romantic capital for Black women and Black non-men. The system of gender norms doesn't benefit anyone along the gender spectrum. Women are assumed to be helpless damsels, and men are assumed to be one-dimensional robots. And the people who don't fall within that binary don't even exist. This is because of the root of gender norms being patriarchy, specifically religio-patriarchy, which is super influential. But I'll make another video for that topic because it's so nuanced and dynamic and deep, and yes. The effects of the triangular trade will forever affect the entire world. But I want to dive into how it has affected family dynamics and romantic relationships in the West, in the so-called West. Yes. Also, I will be citing all these in notes and things tagged along, so if you're interested, read below. If a person is being afforded a better lifestyle because of their romantic proximity to someone else, sorry to tell you, babe, I'm not that sorry. But that's sex work. Now, not all sex work includes traditional sex or penetration. The guise and hint of romance is more than enough sometimes. If you know, you know, okay? Now, here's an example of what I mean. When someone that is romantically pursuing you gives you things, does favors for you, and other offerings in exchange for your romantic attention and time and possible relationship, that is a transaction. And because transactions take agreements and uphold expectations, this teeters on the line of working. With transactions of any sort, there has to be a back and forth and some kind of negotiating going on to figure out what you're getting for what you're giving. And this is an everyday occurrence, something that's common that we all deal with. We all understand what transactions are. This is at the store, the hospital, the leasing office, college, job interviews, etc., etc. Now, on the surface, this may not seem explicitly sex-related, but it is. If you can gain material things like money or even advance your life due to being desirable enough to demand things in exchange for your romantic attention, that means you are able to capitalize off of your romantic desire ability. Ooh. And when I say demanding doesn't have to be a negative thing. I feel like that has a negative connotation. Demands are just expectations wrapped in very firm boundaries. This type of engagement is consent-focused and challenges rape culture, as long as all parties involved are consenting along the way, of course. I will get more into rape culture a little later in this video, but I just wanted to, a little tip of the iceberg of how sex work is radical, girl, a little tip of the iceberg. As a woman, to bank your livelihood on a man is dangerous business. People in the Western world no longer live in a society that needs marriage in order to have long, successful, and fulfilling lives. Dating and marriage has shifted from business and possessions to now centering the idea of love and possessions. People are fickle, and to come up off of someone else's life earnings is a little crazy, especially when that come up is based on whether they like you and how long they will continue to like you.
Through it, but I swear to God, I never ever wanted my daughter to have to go through this. After all that fairy tale wedding, you so happy to fix a home and caring for his was your own?
Some sausage and eggs and all that.
I guess that is. Nah, come on, baby.
And you didn't do anything wrong. That was loving your husband like the Bible says to love him. He just was the wrong damn one.
You're right.
We see how that could go, okay? And coming from a hot girl, bad gal pick-me who has been tricking niggas since middle school and also has a degree in history, I can say with 10 toes on the ground that there are patterns that show us that betting your livelihood on what a man will provide you is usually a losing game. Not just because of the fifth wave feminism? Not just because of the fifth wave feminism idea of men are trash, but because of the systematic structure of patriarchy that is supported by the judicial system, church and state, and ultimately the globalness of anti-blackness. 50% of marriages end in divorce. That's a high percentage considering marriage is advertised to us as a forever thing. Marriage is a business negotiation. Let's remember, marriage is a business negotiation, which requires legal documents in the beginning, middle, and end. However, Western propaganda has convinced us that the emotion and act of love is actually the most important thing to consider when putting together your contract of marriage. This is a legal binding contract, like I don't think you should be basing it off of feelings. The scenario of a woman being kept by a man comes with certain expectations rooted in gender norms, rooted in gender roles, rigid patriarchy, and ultimately control.
And you don't ever put yourself in a position to where a motherfucker can financially abuse you and tell you this is my shit. Girl, please. Ever. Don't you ever show up in no relationship where you are having these patriarchal expectations of a man and he starts treating you like you in a patriarchy. Don't do it. I want him to take care of me. He's supposed to protect and provide. And it comes with some other things too in exchange for that.
This doesn't even include the element of race and the lopsided financial opportunities that people are not afforded because of racism and the effects of global colonization. That's why I had to jump off that sinking ship of patriarchy. I had to jump off the ship of patriarchal romantic standards when I did, thank God, yes. The variable that has control in this situation is the rich man. And for context, I am talking about rich men. A man that could take you out of your tax bracket. Not someone making $10,000 to $30,000 more than you, no. Someone that will change your status from working middle class to high class lifestyles where you don't have to work but have all of the Western society luxuries, you know. Now, most of us don't rub shoulders with these kinds of people because racism, classism, etc. However, I realized men of all tax brackets are socialized to cosplay rich husband and housewife despite who's actually working and salary amounts. This leaves women taking on the burden of contributing financially as well as doing the brunt of home care labor. Don't cosplay housewife with a patriarch. We get rid of patriarchy. Anyways, back to the task at hand. Based off of history, rich men usually do what's in their best interest, disregarding love, children, and lifelong relationships. Expecting marriage to be a way to better your life financially is extremely risky when there's a 50% chance it won't last. And you're at the mercy of someone else's choices. Like, that's just simply, like, come on. That is a crappy setup for any successful business contract. Just remember, marriage is a business contract. That marriage is a business contract. It's a contract. For example, Ashley Darby of RHOP has explained how the prenup she signed twice leaves her without the come up that was expected from her being married to a multi-millionaire colonizer, Michael Darby. The story of Ashley Darby speaks exactly to my point of housewives being sex workers. Both Ashley and her husband, Michael Darby, have expressed that they bonded and enjoyed threesomes in the beginning of their intimate relationship. Now, I just want to note that threesomes are totally fine. As long as there are consenting adults the entire way through the process of doing the do, then hey, do what you gotta do. And that process includes the discussion of it, finding the people that will be involved, and so on and so forth. Michael Darby and Ashley Darby were married for 4 years when she wanted to stop having threesomes and told him so. Ashley came from very humble beginnings and probably thought marrying an extremely rich man would change her lifestyle and tax bracket. And essentially, yes, it did. She lived in a corner penthouse, afforded her mother financial support, and she rubbed shoulders with the right circles to be on a hit TV show about being a housewife. But, is it really her lifestyle to claim? And if it is her lifestyle to claim, now that she is divorcing him, how long will she be able to maintain that lifestyle? Ashley has expressed to Michael that she no longer wanted to have threesomes, a part of their sexual life. Ashley had their second child, and then the filing of a divorce follows immediately after.
I don't buy that you and Michael are divorcing because he wants to have threesomes and you don't. You've looked the other way for years.
I really do want monogamy, and I want to set that example for my kids.
She has recently expressed that the prenup she signed twice, which is nuts, was supposed to leave her with millions, along with spousal support and half of Michael's earnings. However, the prenup had loopholes and clauses Ashley was unaware of.
What is the status of the prenup? Will you get half of what he has?
Oh, man. It really just did not work out in my favor.
Wow.
Essentially, everything that Michael came into the marriage with is his. The money that Michael made, that he then put into other projects later, is all considered his because of the source of the money. Right? So if he made that money prior to us getting married, and he invested that into later projects, all the money from those projects that he later invested in is still his.
Do you know how much he is worth and where his money is and how much money he has?
No.
So no lump sum payment, no idea of what alimony might look like?
According to the prenup, I'm not allowed to get alimony.
You can't get alimony?
I know, guys, okay? Yeah. I thought
Actually,
that was horrible.
can you have your lawyer look at it?
Child
The
support?
money that's in the marriage that he made during the marriage that was not invested.
Right.
Can you touch that? Because I believe you can. Yeah, but she don't even know how much that is.
I know,
She has no idea.
I didn't get into the nitty-gritty of all that simply because my prenup was pretty ironclad.
Are you coming out of this getting anything from him outside of child support?
Yes.
And house.
What?
Yes, I got my house. I also have some language in my separation and divorce agreement about some safety nets in case I have some financial difficulties.
So like spousal support.
Essentially.
And she is now living in a house that is in the name of an LLC Michael Darby created during their separation process, which is a huge red flag. And the colonize is gonna colonize, okay? Ashley is no longer in poverty, which is great. And also, if Michael Darby wanted to lower her social status and affect her entire financial life, he could. But the same cannot be said the other way around. Sis ain't got full control of her livelihood, and that's scary. Rum break. There are many women who used to be housewives whose husbands left them and their children unexpectedly, leaving them in a very different living standard than before, which is real fucked up.
So we're saying like, oh, if you go over here, it's better over here. I thought it would be helpful to look at some TikToks from white women who were formerly stay-at-home mothers and how it did not end up well for them because the institution of being a stay-at-home mom, it was never great. I think a lot of us have either ignored what our grandmothers told us willfully or accidentally. Because if you ever talk to your grandmother about why they have been married for X amount of years, maybe they have found the love in the hopeless place eventually. But a lot of our grandmothers, unfortunately, have suffered varying levels of financial abuse, which we're going to get into. And this has not changed. All right, so we're going to play this one. Hopefully all the tech is working. It should be.
When I talk about the dangers of being a stay-at-home mom, the biggest comment that I get from stay-at-home moms is that time with their children is absolutely irreplaceable, and they'd rather have that than their career, their education, financial security, etc. Cool, me too. And when my son was 8 years old, my daughter was 14 years old, and then I had an 18-year-old daughter who was living out of state that was completely financially dependent on me for everything. She was finishing up her senior year in high school, and a son who was in pre-med school and college. 4 kids, financially dependent on me at age 44. I became homeless, and their entire life got fucked up. My son literally knows to ask if this is the last time this week that we can buy a jug of milk. Is that all the milk, Mom? Are we buying new milk this week, or is that it? My kids learned really quick to check the bread to make sure there wasn't moldy from the food bank. And they knew who to call when I had pushed my gas tank to the limit and we ran out in the middle of an intersection and needed to be rescued because I did not have any money in the bank to put gas in that car. And it's really sad to look back on all the times that I made smoothies for my kids and did little play groups and made sure that they were in the best schools and made sure that their lives were safe and happy and magical. And I was there for them, not realizing that that very act of becoming a stay-at-home mom would destroy our world years later when I went through a very unexpected divorce.
And I appreciate her for being so candid and so honest because it's hard for people to admit when you seemingly had it all and then all of a sudden it's gone. It's gone and you're responsible for yourself and multiple children now and the person has left you because the misnomer with marriage is that people assume that marriage comes with immediately enforceable rights. Marriage comes with certain rights. Yeah, certain benefits. They are not immediately enforceable. They are not immediate at all. For you to get the money owed to you, if your spouse leaves you and leaves you with 4 children, how many people do we know, sadly, unfortunately, every other day they're arguing with someone who used to be in their life about child support for their kids? None of that is immediate. You have to go to court. You have to sit in the courthouse. You have to get it enforced. Then you have to get access to the accounts. it is a rude awakening, and I've seen this happen to people in my personal life as well, when these things happen and now you're all of a sudden like, what am I about to do? What am I about to do? And a lot of times what people don't realize, just because you're a stay-at-home mom, to be honest, you're not inherently financially abused. That's not correct. However, the likelihood of you being financially abused when you do not work is then higher. You are vulnerable to be financially abused. People that are financially abused are often abused in other ways and are often cut off from their family. So now if you have this awful life event happen to you, you essentially maybe have been cut off from your family. Who are you going to reach out to? Is commotion. It causes unnecessary commotion for you and your children versus, having a part-time job, or at the very least having some vex money.
Things like this are starting to be noticed as a form of financial abuse, which I feel that's pretty accurate. To be a housewife and stay-at-home mom is a full-time job. Traditionally, when you are a housewife, your spouse is not splitting home tasks with you 50-50. Every meal is cooked or managed by the wife. Every load of clothes is washed by the wife. Every diaper is changed by the wife. Sweeping, mopping, dusting, scrubbing, bending down to clean the tub, reaching up to wipe the ceiling. Bag-breaking, laborious work. Though it is cute to think of marrying a rich man and being able to hire a nanny or a maid, this is not the reality of most wives. First of all, hiring out is not only expensive for daily tasks.
You need to clean your room. Your room is really dirty. Then who cleans it? Paying $500 a month to have somebody clean my house just wasn't going to happen anymore. So I'm the maid now, and I demand everybody to help me. The economy the way it is right now, we are feeling it just like everybody else. And we're doing things that we didn't do before. We do things as a family, and I enjoy it more. But I love having money too.
It also can sometimes cause friction in the household.
So I had to call Greg. I said, Greg, I have you on speaker. He was like, I said, so you've been talking to Juanita? And he said, no, I ain't never gonna go. You gotta be. I was like, okay, you have five.
Also, a majority of rich men that love patriarchy usually wants his wife to lean into gender norms. So even if hired help is affordable, he'd rather his wife do those duties in order to uphold Western traditional marriage standards.
No, I don't control you. I'm in control.
You in control of what?
Well, just in general, I'm in control. It's like I'm a man. I have responsibilities.
But you're not saying you're in control.
No, not of you. I'm in control, but I'm not controlling. It's just a big difference. You want a baby or you want your career? Which one you want?
It's not a choice.
What you want?
How could you say choose between a baby or a career? I told my husband I'm gonna have children, I'm gonna be the best wife for you, and I'm also gonna throw a fabulous charity event for the Ultimate Women's Foundation. I mean, really.
I mean, yeah, mom did it, and she made it look easy, but I guarantee you, being black, that wasn't easy. That was hard.
But I have you.
Yeah, but if my mom hustling and doing my thing, and I'm at home sometimes or whatever, yeah,
hire a nanny.
No. I want you to be the mom. I want you to be there to feed them and stuff. Let me go hustle and bust my head wide open down to the white meat.
I feel like we just have so much. I feel like we can do anything we want to do.
We can. But through prayer, we want to make good decisions.
And let's remember, this is real labor that society has convinced us is easy. When I think of home labor, I of course have to think of my elders and ancestors historically doing extremely laborious things. Things my female ancestors had to do for the white man and for their black man. Hard physical labor. Black women during enslavement were not afforded agency to be someone's wife, let alone a stay-at-home one. Because black women were forced into labor systems inside and outside of the house, this changes the dynamic of wifeness as well as motherness for black people, and specifically black women. Because enslaved women did extreme labor, they were seen as heroic, the opposite of what a wife is supposed to be. Wives are seen as damsels in distress, a woman that needs guidance from a man to navigate life in a better way. Almost like a husband is a human god that helps the woman see her purpose in life. So if enslaved women were independent of a husband and a family, to be honest, but that's a video for another day, she could never be in the category of damsel because she had to be heroic with the laborious work she did. Enslaved women were not allowed to be helpless due to technically being property and being in the labor force. It was either be heroic or die mentally, spiritually, and physically. To be a hero is deemed as a masculine trait and defeminize the enslaved women that needed to survive. So, outside of having no rights to be a wife, the socialization and stigma still lives on as to why black women are not the standard idea of wife, and especially not a stay-at-home one. Also, I want to add that it's weird to think about enslaved women having to do back-breaking labor and then go into her living quarters and be a mother. Like, how? How? How can someone work from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., make dinner, clean herself and her pick-me, and socialize and be loving? Like, how? I don't have an answer to that question because my mind is blown when I think about those scenarios. Like, I just give thanks and praises to my elders and ancestors. Like, but regardless, enslaved women were not wives for more reasons than just not being seen as feminine. Most households of enslaved people were matrifocal, which means it was ran, headed, and supported by women, whether blood related or not. There was an intergenerational family dynamic filled with women that supported each other and their children. But where were the enslaved men? Well, for several reasons, the men during chattel slavery were not as permanently prevalent on plantations as their female counterparts. This is because men were hired out and rented more often. Enslaved men also did not have the agency to legally ask a woman to be his wife and then exercise that right. As property, those legal rights were null and void, which is super fucking sick and super fucking sad. Well, let's burn this country down. Husbands had no legal claim to their families and accordingly could not legitimately demand their economic resources or offer them protection from abuse or exploitation, which was extremely prevalent during slavery. The primary role of the slave mother, if compared with mainstream American gender convention, also was deeply compromised. For even though most slave children were part of matrifocal families, the slave woman's most important daily activities encompassed the labor that she performed for her owner, not for her family or for herself. This responsibility claimed so much of her time and energy that child rearing was extremely limited. Child rearing was a task enslaved mothers shared with a number of females outside of her blood and marriage-related family. These were the usual circumstances for slave life, even when they were a part of nuclear families. It was their mothers who had to make the day-to-day decisions that fashioned their lives. Their mothers and other members of their female communities who had to provide whatever protection and support the children received. It takes a village. The male presence was so tenuous because of imposed residential isolation and frequent sales and hiring that women became the stabilizing forces in slave families and communities. When we take these historical events into consideration, some social standards need to be questioned. Are Black women that marry Black men able to be stay-at-home wives considering the financial dynamics we have experienced over time and still see today? I suppose, but what if she is a stay-at-home wife for a non-Black man? I'm not opposed to interracial dating, but cooking and cleaning for a white man in order to earn your keep has a different meaning when you are a descendant of chattel slaves. Yeah, I said it. And speaking of cleaning, I think about the women during enslavement that had to clean those big ass houses owned by people who were slobs. Let's just talk about it. Slave owners were slobs. When you are not the one that has to clean up the mess, it is easy to be sloppy and dirty. When you know someone will pick up after you, dropping things and creating filth comes like a hobby. Let's talk about cleaning and how important that is. Cleaning is socialized as a blasé task that is easy and anybody can do. But if janitors, custodians, garbage truck drivers went on strike and stopped working like they were doing in Memphis a few months ago, the city would look and smell crazy within hours. Not to mention the health hazard it would cause. I am saying this to magnify the significance of being the primary home laborer and cleaner, and how important the role is to maintain the business of home. The same goes for being responsible for feeding people 3 or more times a day. It is a job. And in any other environment, people that do these things are given a paycheck and sometimes held in extremely high regards. But let's get back to pop culture. Young Miami has been in the blogs for months regarding her relationship with P. Diddy. She has stated several times that she is not his girlfriend, at least not exclusively. She also lets us know that he buys her expensive ass shit. She recently broke up with his ass, even though they was just seen kissing. I don't know what's going on. She recently broke up with him, but her connection to him has had her in the limelight and afforded her several opportunities separate from making music and being a rapper. She has a self-titled talk show, a clothing brand, a party card game, and most recently, she has been seen in acting roles. Where is my husband? Rumors are that Young Miami has a contractual deal with P. Diddy that allows him to financially benefit from her newfound deals, as well as cleaning up his image of being an abusive predator. Allegedly. Am I a predator? Am I a predator? Am I a predator? Am I a predator? That sounds a little pimpish to me since Miami's doing the brunt of the outfacing labor. Does this make her a sex worker? I say yes. But let's dive deeper so you can come to your own conclusion. Pulling from some lyrics, both Young Miami and JT talk about getting money or gifts from being sexy and sometimes doing sexual acts. Both of these women have very public romantic relationships with extremely rich men. They are also self-proclaimed sex workers, technically, and yet they were still wifed. Isn't that something? We will come back to that concept in a bit, but really think about it. These women outwardly say they use men for material things, and men are still lining up in droves to breathe their air. Young Miami and Diddy have an untraditional romantic arrangement, but we know that they are romantically involved. When I say romantic, I do not mean sex. Romance and sex are two different things and should be thought of separately. There may not even be sex happening between the two, but the romantic relationship still exists. Young Miami's popularity has expanded tremendously since being attached to P. Diddy, so it can be assumed she is making more money now than before her relationship with him. And just to remember, she is keeping him relevant while simultaneously hushing the rumors of him being extremely abusive, allegedly. Both of them benefit from the other in different ways. This can qualify as sex work if Miami is truly benefiting from her relationship with him. Because we know him and he's a trickster, okay? You can't trust P. Diddy now. It is also rooted in the concept of courting, which I believe is rooted in sex and sex work adjacent undertones. But oops. Let's talk about dating and courtship. When we dive into the world of heterosexual dating, there are a lot of unspoken norms that are expected. The man pays and the woman looks sexy, whether subtle or outright. And if they have sex, then the man adds a tally mark to his scoreboard, while women never kiss and tell. All dates do not go like this, and people date differently, of course, but the way dates are portrayed on TV, film, and social media, that is usually the formula. Now, if a man was to take me out on a yacht for a candlelight dinner with a violinist and my favorite foods, but that's because that's what I like. Is the man owed sex because he went above and beyond? No. But if he is expecting to get fucked because he spent $5,000 on a date, that means he wants to engage in sex work. He's just saying it in a different, non-collaborative or healthy kind of way. Now, before I start exposing my personal business, let's see how sex workers are closely related to wives more than we like to acknowledge. Historically, the original reason to get married was for financial and legacy reasons. Being able to add wealth to the family name and nourish the assets that already exist from the individuals into something larger as a team. Or am I wrong? Is marriage just an institution to control partners and impose patriarchal standards rooted in toxic religious ideals? LOL. Anyway, we are told that marriage is supposed to be a team situation to make separate lives into one solid one together. We are told that being a wife means you are a quality woman that deserves to be picked over all other women. But what markers are needed to be checked in order to be wifey material? And are there exchanges that wives do that involve sex for material things? The short answer is yes.
I'm a single woman that I have to support myself. I need to make this a success because I don't have a rich dick, to go to every night and do the withdrawal. Need a new purse, honey. Need a new dress, honey. Need to pay my bills.
But let's dive deep into how that shows up and why wives and workers should be in solidarity. Hello. What's not clicking? What's not clicking?
What's not clicking? What's not clicking? There's times when...
If there are repercussions and consequences to not having sex with your partner, and if those consequences are life-altering because you are no longer having sex with your partner for whatever reason, that means you are engaging in sex work. I repeat, you are affording your lifestyle from having sex, just like a sex worker. The difference is, the sex worker does not have the daily obligations that a housewife would. Keeping up with children, running the house like a business, fidelity and faithfulness, ongoing communication, etc. Like, girl, that's a lot of work. Now, there are some sex workers who engage in one or more of these listed things, but guess what? They're being paid for it. And it may not always be money. It could be housing, jewelry, shopping sprees, investing in a business, you name it. The obligations and expectations are similar, but still end up being different from that of a wife because there is no divorce needed if the relationship doesn't work out. And we all know divorce comes with all kind of shit. If you're engaging in sex with the hopes of having a wedding ring, eventually, or a Chanel bag, she's a Nazi racist, so never mind, not Chanel, then you are engaging in sex work. I can even argue that I am engaging in sex work right now. I am discussing sex with research and time put in to make this video, and which was work. And my payment would be to teach people new concepts of sex and eventually monetization on YouTube. While it is not the typical idea of sex work, it technically is. In the Ethical Slut, we are reminded that sex is used as a commodity, a coin you trade for something else, whether that something else be stability, children, a wedding ring, i.e. marriage. These are respectable things to be trading for sex, but it is a trade nonetheless. If something like a wedding ring or stability are threatened if you suddenly stopped having sex with your husband, that means you are affording a marriage from your sex. For example, if sex becomes unenjoyable for the man, because, honey, and he decides to leave you, leaving you financially unstable, then that would mean your financial stability came from sex. We see it all the time.
What? No, he wants to kick me off. He said, you need to go find a home. What? You and the kids. What about a home for his kids?
Sex is work and takes effort and labor, even if it's just mental labor. For all the parties involved, it has to be treated as such. The amount of labor and socialization girls and women, trans, cis, and beyond, receive, a lot of it equates to, if you are physically beautiful enough, you will be a wife. And when you are a wife, your life will be better than a non-wife, and it's an accomplishment even. We twist and turn ourselves with the thought of an invisible, ever-present possible husband lurking in our mind. And we're just like, oh my God, there's a possible husband. This is an example of how the system of patriarchy penetrates the psyche, which is a video for another day. And the man version of this patriarchal psyche is a bro, a big bro lurking. Oh my God, my bro, my bro, oh my God. Anyway, continuing with my point of beauty being the indicator of wifey material. Beauty is not in the eye of the beholder and is actually systematic. In Belly of the Beast, Deshaun Harrison speaks on fatness and the system of desire, ability. Harrison explains how the ability to be desirable is not based on how much you love yourself and believe that you are beautiful. I quote, "Love of self will never be the answer to oppression, nor will it ever be guaranteed." End quote. Loving on yourself isn't going to make racism go away. Loving on yourself doesn't make colorism or featureism go away. Classism and ableism still exist no matter how much self-love you have. To be deemed desirable is based on the structure of the world we live in. And depending on how valuable others see your desirability, you may be afforded treatment that others may not experience. Women are taught to be as desirable as possible, and that's whether through sexiness or virtue. And if desirable enough, you will be picked. It doesn't even matter the desire. If you're good at that desire, you will be picked, baby. To follow up with that, the concept of using a rich nigga to get what you want has a certain expectation and limited standard. Colorism, ableism, anti-fatness, anti-blackness, featureism, and classism all exist in the world of sex work and desirability, as it does in many spaces. It's, honey, the colonized world. The plague of whiteness keeps a standard of institutional beauty and power so close to white cisgender maleness, preferably with money and without disabilities. The closer you are to the white man's standard of beauty, well, you know the rest. This is not to say dark-skinned women are not desirable or baddies that use wheelchairs don't get chose, because they do. This is to say they are not the majority population because of racism and Puritan beliefs. Now, before I go completely historical theory, let's continue the task at hand. I believe it is powerful to close out on how sex work is different than traditional dating standards in one of the most beautiful ways. And that is because sex work dismantles rape culture, period. Yes, mama. Ethical sex work goes against the rape culture that is perpetuated in the world because of the root being consent and agreements. While not all sex work goes against rape culture, you know, like sex trafficking, race play, things involving children, etc. The type of sex work that I am talking about is consensual and ethical. Ethical sex work allows a few things. It allows 2 or more consenting adults agreeing on sexual or non-sexual acts for some type of exchange, whether monetary or not, whether that be money, gifts, favors, etc. This is an experience that can be fulfilling, equitable, and extremely safe. And if you choose to get creative, the experience can be extremely fun. So if we think about sex work as someone giving something with an expectation of romance and labor, then that opens the door for wives, girlfriends, friends to be sex workers as well, doesn't it? Reminding us that these elements are all around us in the relationships that we have. Period. Ethical sex work is radical because it challenges rape culture. Ethical sex work is also radical because the network of commerce is usually done in an underground economy system that doesn't tax the parties involved, because fuck the American government and fuck their tax system. Ethical sex work is radical because it puts trust and agreements at the forefront while reminding us that our infinitely dimensional and fulfillment is possible.
Not a good day. Okay? Now back to the steak in the table.
If you got all the way this far, I mean, comment something. Like, even if it's just an emoji, just to let me know that you guys got this far. Like, honey boo boo, it took me months to write this script, months to proofread the essay and make edits and all those things. So I would just appreciate if you just like share this with someone, watch it over again, comment something, like give me some statistics, babe. Give me some statistics, like give me some stats. Okay, subscribe to my Patreon, like it's lit over there. I really hope that you all enjoyed this essay that I put together. I've been working on it for a very long time and I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of her. Sex work is radical, sex work is ethical, and we out here trying to dismantle this system. So yes, like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate all of, you know, the interactions with my page and my videos. So yes, ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Okay, the rum, that brown rum is, oh, okay.